Kicking off her flat shoes, Pet dropped her bag and room key on the bed and started to move away. On second thought, she reached into her bag to take out a pack of cigarettes and her butane lighter, then walked to the single chair. She turned and sank into a seat in a single, fluid motion. Shaking out a cigarette, she snapped the lighter and held the flame to the tip. She glanced at the television but didn't bother to turn it on. After exhaling the cigarette smoke, she leaned back in the chair to reflect on the lousy beginning of this production. If she had kept her mouth shut and resisted the urge to vent her opinion of Dane Kingston, he would never have overheard it. Chances were that he had probably forgotten the hostility of their previous meeting. Now she had resurrected it all again when it had been better off buried. She didn't like him. But just because she didn't like him, she didn't have to tell him that to his face. If you didn't like people, you avoided them, or were civil if you had to be around them. But you didn't declare war, which was virtually what she had done. A sigh broke from her throat. She was usually such an even-tempered person, patient and in control. So why was it that Dane Kingston had the ability to make her lose her cool? To use an outworn vernacular. The ashes began to build up on the end of her cigarette. The nearest ashtray was on the dresser. Rising to her feet, Pat walked over to lay the cigarette in the glass container. She opened the dresser drawer where she had put her nightgown after unpacking and laid it on top. There wasn't much point in staying up since it was after 10. It would be a long day tomorrow, even if Dane Kingston had reminded her of it. She began unbuttoning her khaki blouse and tugging the hem loose from the waistband of her matching slacks. A knock at the door stopped her action with only 2 buttons left to unfasten. "Who is it?" Pat called. "Dane Kingston," was the muffled reply. She didn't for 1 minute believe it was the producer. Some members of the crew had a weird sense of humor. It was more than likely somebody's idea of a really funny, practical joke. Irritation surged through her in a quick rush. "Oh, go away," she grumbled. But the person simply knocked again. She had started to tell him she wasn't in the mood for jokes when she decided it would be much more fun to turn the tables on the gagster. "I'm coming!" She deliberately put an inviting lilt in her voice and discreetly buttoned a couple of buttons, but left the top ones undone to permit a provocative glimpse of the shadowy cleft between her breasts. She sauntered to the door, not bothering with the safety chain as she turned the knob and pulled the door open. "Have you come to tuck me in, Dane?" she murmured sexily. But it was Dane Kingston standing in the hallway.